Hey, welcome back to this episode of Chewin The Rag. Today we have a special guest. I've been talking about it. I've been teasing it. I know a lot of people are excited to hear this conversation. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Justin March to the pod. How you doing today, Jay?
I'm doing good. How's it going? And thanks for having me. Looking
Yeah,
forward to spending some time.
yeah, no, thanks for coming on. It's a little bit different because a lot of this is like comedy based and a lot of like laughs, and we have serious talks with people too, but never really get into mental health and especially in like alpha type sports,
Right,
football,
definitely.
mixed martial arts and all that stuff. So
Yep.
it'll be pretty exciting to talk about that, especially with some of the stuff floating around the internet right now.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I
sir.
don't I don't know if you've been seeing Cowboys Twitter, but it's not fun today.
Yeah, I was busy today. I had to take my dogs to the vet, all that kind of stuff. So I got on there briefly, and I really didn't get to go in. And I mean, it looks kind of spicy out there. Not gonna lie. So I'll be interested to either get filled in on it or to check it out after this.
Yeah, a lot of it's Parsons to be honest. It's just,
Yep.
Micah, he's one of those guys that he has a pod and he's
Yeah.
very outspoken. He's a young guy and he's one of the best in the league already at his age and
Yep.
in the sports. So it's like he's gonna have an opinion and his opinion holds a lot of weight. So
Yeah.
once he
Definitely.
gets going. But it's interesting because one of the guys he took shots at were he was more of a rebuttal to Skip Bayless, who you've had your own words to Skip Bayless. It's actually how you and I have got connected. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
But so Skip said something today along the lines of like, as a future leader of this team, you need to have more respect and pretty much along those lines. And it's interesting because you've not only had to correct Skip once, but twice on how he's approached Prescott for one, and how he needs to be more mentally strong. He looks weak when he's talking about his
Yep.
mother and the passing of his brother and whatnot. And then also DeMar Hamlin, where he's like, I don't see how you can cancel this game this far in the season. It's like, how do you not understand
Yep.
the weight of what you're saying about both of these topics? So
Definitely.
why was it
Definitely.
important to you to, speak out on both of those things?
Yeah, as somebody who's dealt with losing a parent and losing a brother, I can heavily relate to that situation. And for a guy that I know personally, for a guy that everybody knows personally, whether you like how the guy performs, anything like that is out of the question, right? So we're not talking about football; we're talking about real life in this aspect. And when you go through those kind of things in life, and you have to keep everything together. You got to be strong because your team is relying on you, your family's relying on you to keep things going. In a sense, it's tough. It's tough. It's tough to be still be a great leader, still be a great teammate because you deal with survivor's guilt. How do I have all these different things? How do I, how am I quarterback one? How am I in the NFL? And when your brother passes away, how do you deal with that, knowing that you have everything, but you lost something that's more important? So when you get past football, you get past money. Um, none of that stuff matters when you're talking about dealing with mental health and situations like that. I mean, it's tough, man, and if you've never dealt with it, it'll be tough for you to kind of relate or understand. And then there's some people who are, emotionally tapped into the environment of losing a loved one or being around, maybe your best friend lost his mom or something like that. So you understand that pain by association.
Hmm.
So that's what I felt. I felt pain by association because I've been there. I've dealt with that, and no matter what happens, football is a sport. For a lot of us, they say, "Oh, it's not. It's what you do. It's not who you are." But that's not true. We've all played football, and it really is who we are. And then finding an identity outside of that is tough. But football is what we do, and it's who we are. And I think just with the whole Dak thing and him losing his mom and dad, and Skip saying he can't show that kind of signs of weakness, it's like, man, come on, man, what the hell is this all about, man? You have
Yeah.
people that deal with real life, I'm saying, real life stuff, and unfortunately, man, a lot of commentators have to say something because they have to get clicks, and that's how they feed their families. So understanding that it kind of goes hand in hand. A lot of people, man, they say a bunch of dumb shit just because they want to get more clicks, they want to get their name out there more, they want more money, they want things like this. But there's people in the NFL that don't play for money. They play for the love of the game. Like, it's not an
Right.
easy thing to do. it's not an easy thing to do to quarterback the Cowboys.
No, yeah,
It's tough,
especially that. Like,
especially the Cowboys. You know what I mean? And then you're dealing with family. You can't even really grieve because you're considered weak because you're a starting quarterback in the NFL. Like to me, that was just total BS.
yeah, there was no, you could tell that it wasn't about football at that point for him to say like, oh, he's not showing the mental strength. Like Dak is, even if we're not even talking about the mental strength, that he's all pro two this year, MVP candidate. Like he still plays at a very high level. You have to have
Yeah,
some sort of mental strength to not only lose a parent, lose a brother, but then you have the star in your helmet. It's the most like everybody says it, but
exactly.
I don't think anybody realizes like
Nobody
the
really
weight of it.
realizes it. No, they don't. They don't.
Like that's a mental burden in itself. And then you're twisting in the personal life.
Yep.
He's got a daughter on the
Mhm.
way
Right.
this season as well. So he's constantly putting that helmet on and playing to his very best, whether it's the standard everybody else wants, which that's a whole different conversation, but he's playing to
Yep.
his best ability and
Yep.
dealing with all that stuff going on as well. And I lost my mother, I believe it was October this year.
Oh, sorry to hear
And
that.
oh, thank you. Um, it may have been before that. I don't. That whole fall was a blur, but
About Blur. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So if I lost her on, I uh, I used to do stand up comedy, and the whole routine for stand up, it's like, how do you got to relate your personal life. So I talk a lot about my
Right.
mom, my dad,
Right.
brothers, wife, whatever it might be.
Hmm.
And I had a show booked. It was going to be like my final show because I haven't done it in a few years. My son was born, and I was like, I got to put that first. I can't be out in
Hmm.
comedy clubs till midnight and trying to
Right.
for
Right.
no money at all. So
Yeah.
let me put him first. But somebody reached out to me. It was a benefit for hospice, and they
Hmm.
say, could you just, would you mind just performing once for us just for that? I said, you know what? Yeah, fine. That's a good
Hmm.
benefit. My son's old enough now where he can come watch me perform. It'll kind of be cool for him to see.
Right. Right.
And my mom passed. If that was on a Sunday, the show, my mother passed on that Wednesday right before. And I'm like, man, she's never
Oh,
missed
that's
a
tough.
show. She's never missed one of my
Right.
fights, like
Right.
one of my
Hmm.
bands, like front and center for everything. And I know you can relate to that with your father,
Yep. Hmm.
which we were going to talk about. But a lot of my jokes are about my mom, and it's like
Yeah.
he texted me, he said, with that going on, like you don't have to be here. And I'm like, look, I already committed. Um,
Yeah.
I'm
She
gonna
wants you to do it.
come. Yeah, that's
Yep.
exactly
Yep.
it. So I'm
Yep.
gonna come. I'm gonna do it. And
Definitely.
it's like, you feel weird telling these jokes about mom because it doesn't always put
Yeah.
mom in the best spotlight. Like,
Right. Right.
you
Yep.
try to make a bad situation funny, and
Mhm.
it's like, you guys got to understand these are jokes. Like, I
Right.
I
Right.
love mom, but
Uh-huh. Yep.
so it was definitely weird to go up there and perform jokes regarding my mother who just passed not even
Right.
7 days ago. So
Yeah. Yep.
it's not putting on a helmet and playing
Hmm.
football, but I do understand
Yeah.
that same exact thing. Like you have to perform to the best of your ability.
Exactly. Exactly.
Um, One of the things that I wanted to bring up, and this was actually a question from a listener, which I already knew the answer, but I was like, it'll be better to get it from you,
Hmm.
regarding dropping the Lillard from your jersey. Your
Yeah.
father passed. I just want to make sure all my facts are straight.
Um.
Was it the year before you went into the league? Is that what it was, or the few months prior?
It was this my second year in the NFL.
Okay, okay.
Yep. Yep.
So I let I'll let you break down, the decision because I remember you posted about your decision. So put it into your own terms, like how important it was for you to carry on just being March with your son and your wife.
Yeah. Okay. So this is how the Lillard even got on the jersey. So for my whole life, I've gone by the last name March, which is my mother's maiden name. And I was the only one out of all my five siblings. Sorry about that. All five of us, they all have the last name Lillard. I had the
Mhm.
last name March. And as I'm chasing this dream, to the NFL, I go off to college, and um, just playing and competing, and my dad making as many games as he can, all that kind of stuff. And one day it just kind of dawned on me. It's like, man, I have a great dad. He's always kind of, been there, even when he was dealing with, his first cancer, his second cancer, all that kind of stuff. Even with him dealing with all that kind of stuff, he always made it about me, whether I was taking me to practice, whether I was coming down to Akron for a game. And he actually he was actually recovering from heart surgery my senior year in high school. I'm in college. So I said, you know what? Senior night, I wanna put the game he was coming to. I was like, I want to make sure I got Lillard on the back of my jersey. So that senior year is when I kind of threw Lillard on the back of my jersey, and hyphenated it. Just to give him that recognition, because I mean, now been a dad myself. It's kind of like if I was to, watch my son play football and I'm always there, and he's getting recognition as, a different last name than mine.
Right.
It would be something hard for me to stomach. But he never brought it up. He never mentioned it, and I never really even thought about it. I was just like, hey, this is my identity. This is who I am. I'm not, I'm a March. Obviously, that's my dad, but my mom, they decided to give me the last name March to carry on that legacy. So I'm like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And then ultimately, I decided to put that name on the back of my jersey. So then I go to the NFL, and the NFL is like, hey, what is your last name? I'm like, it's just March, but I wear Lillard. And they're like, okay, well, we'll get that, on your jersey eventually, if that's what you want to do. I said, okay, well, that is what I want to do. So after I got put on IR, my rookie year, because my rookie year, coming in as undrafted free agent, you never want to have a request. So I was like,
Right.
I'm not requesting anything. If they got just March in there, that's what I'm playing with.
Yeah, exactly.
So so after I go out and I compete and I get put on injured reserve for the year. I kind of felt like I was at that point where, hey, I want to put Lillard back on my jersey. And really how that came about was, after my rookie year, I'm going back into another year. I'm planning to go home for a youth football camp that I've been having for a couple of years. And my dad's there, and I see his eyes are a little bit jaundiced. So I say, hey, pops, you might wanna go get checked out. And then he goes, gets checked out, gives me a call a few weeks later, and he says, yeah, I got pancreatic cancer. They only gave me a month to live or whatnot, and having to deal with that, going into training camp after coming off a big injury. I
Right.
said, you know what,
That's
I'm gonna go in. I'm a put one foot in front of the other, and I'm gonna do everything I can to put my ability on display and make sure that the Lillard was on my jersey during the preseason, so he can see that, watch it from the hospital, all that kind of stuff. So I ended up breaking my hand against the Raiders, and it was kind of like a catch-22 situation where, um, it was like a blessing in disguise, because back then you could put on IR, you're done for 8 weeks.
yep.
So they said, hey, I know you're dealing with a lot of family stuff. Go spend some time with your dad, all that kind of stuff. So, I go spend some time, um, and really, my younger brother was the only one I was still kind of back around home, and he calls me. He's like, hey, you might want to get here. It's not looking too good. Um, so we fly out. He ended up passing away the next day. Got to see him, got to spend some time with him, got to tell him I was going to be a dad. So my wife had just found out that morning she was pregnant, the day he passed away. So I got to tell him I was going to be a father, as he's pretty much in a coma. And,
Yeah.
his eyes open, and he looks at me when I got to tell him I was going to be a dad. So probably one of the coolest moments. And he was just a tough guy, man. So he beat lymphoma, beat prostate cancer, and then he eventually, he had 5 heart surgeries. Kind of catch 22. His, with pancreatic cancer being so aggressive, it's tough for, ultimately him to, his heart to take radiation and chemo and shrink
Yeah.
down the tumor, surgery, all that kind of. So catch 22. So me and my wife are like, they're like, okay, we're gonna put him in hospice care. We're gonna, we'll go up, everybody take a break, go get some coffee. So me and my wife, we ride up with him to the hospice floor. We take him to his room. And the nurse is like, hey, you can go grab some coffee, whatever you want to do. We'll make him as comfortable as we can. And then about 5 minutes later, they come back and say, who's the closest relative to Randy Lillard? Told us, they said he passed away. And I was like, he's a slick guy, man. He's always been like that. Never wanted to show a sign of weakness. So
Yep.
he wanted to pass away on his own. You know what I mean? He didn't want a room full of people, because he didn't want anybody to show any signs of weakness. And that has always been my, my ammo for playing through pain, playing through adversity, all that kind of stuff, not showing any signs of weakness. And I kind of stuck with that. And ultimately, having a son myself, and him, getting older and picking up a football and playing around, I wanted to create a legacy so that when he sees me on TV, it was like, hey, that's my dad.
R-
Because I was, something that, I didn't want him to have any confusion as to, am I hyphenated? All this kind of stuff. No, you're a March. And like my dad took pride in being a dad. It's kind of what I was taking over. Okay, this is who I am. This is who you are. There's no confusion in identity. I want you to be a March, and I want to whatever story from here on out. I want you to be associated with that, and that was kind of my motivation to, drop the Lillard, keep the March because I had my own son at the time. Of that decision. So it was like, hey, now that my son's, he's older, he sees a couple of jerseys around the house as some March Lillard, some March, and it's always cool when I get to tell him the story about his granddad and how good of a man he was and stuff like that. So it's a constant. It's fun. It's fun because he sees some jerseys that are hyphenated. He asks the question, and then we get to talking about my dad and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And then he sees just the march, and he's like, "This is going to be my jersey one day." You know what I mean? So it's kind of like
Yeah.
it's
No,
kind of
that's
cool. At the same time, so that was the whole story behind that. My legal last name is just March. I go by just March. But my dad was a Willard, and I'll make sure that's always part of my story.
yeah, no, I see I get because Twitter get 140 characters.
Yeah, yeah,
I was like, there's no way. I was like, there's more. Like I gotta get
yeah,
everything. So like that's what it was definitely like I was glad that he asked because I was like, thank you for that. Because like that's
yeah,
it's always important just to get to me, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of football. I'm a fan of you. I'm a fan of the Cowboys. I'm a fan just of the sport. But
yeah,
like just getting to know under the helmet, you know what I mean? Because
yeah, definitely.
everybody with the helmet on is just a player.
Yeah,
And, hearing
yeah,
about, how your dad, when he was sick and he knew it was his time, he's like, I got to get everybody out of this room. Um, when you get that phone call, like, look, it's not looking good. Can you get here?
yeah,
That like resonates a lot with me because my mom was, she just had like high blood pressure,
hmm,
hypertension, strokes, heart attacks,
strokes. Yeah,
heart surgeries,
hmm,
like so like
yeah,
hearing you say that and then when she was going to the hospital, it was like almost routine, like every so often
yeah,
she's got to go get the water out of her. So like
yeah,
you don't really think that the next hospital trip's the last hospital trip, you know what I mean?
yeah, definitely, definitely.
So I get the text from my aunt, like it's not looking good. And then I'm talking to my wife and I'm like, my aunt's a little dramatic. I was like, does this
Yeah, yeah,
seem like
yeah,
I'm like I explained, she goes, I think we should go to the hospital. I'm like, all right, this is like that's when
yeah,
it kicks in, like when all right, so we go, you get the breathing machine. It's like, man, you don't even want to like hear that noise again.
yeah,
And it's like,
yeah,
sheesh. But like,
yeah.
same thing how you got to say, I'm gonna be a father. I at least got to say like the I love you because the next day that was it. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right. Yeah,
So that completely resonates with me. From the
definitely.
moment like you get that message, like you got to get here to the moment where it's like,
Yeah,
who's the closest relative? So
yeah,
it
yeah.
definitely, definitely hit home.
Yeah.
And
You never think you'll get that. You never think like even when it happens, you like it doesn't feel real in the moment.
no,
Even after, you're just like, there's no way. And the more you talk about it, which I'm sure you realize, it kind of takes a little bit of, you know, a little bit of that sharp pain away, just a
yeah,
little bit each time.
yeah.
Each time opening up about it, your voice stops choking up eventually. And so for me, that's what I recommend for anybody that's kind of going through things like that. Is the more you talk about it, the easier it becomes for you to actually talk about it and things like that for sure.
Yeah, I think once you stop bottling things, especially as like men, especially in
Yeah,
as athletes and men, you hear a lot about I did a little bit of mixed martial arts and I follow mixed martial arts probably more than I follow football. And you hear that even these guys who are fighting in a cage and in an octagon, they're getting like sports psychologists and they're getting
yeah,
sports therapists and somebody that they could talk to because it is still a little bit of like that alpha male stigma, even playing through toughness, you got to find
yeah,
that balance of like play through the toughness, but I am a human. And so I think it's
yeah,
important for these guys to talk to those sports psychiatrists. And I think the more that people like you and other athletes come out and say, like,
yeah,
look, just talk about it. Like, nobody's going to
yeah.
make fun of you. Like, nobody,
Mhm,
you're not going to get picked on for losing a parent. That's insane. It's like, talk about
mhm.
it. Just make it
Yeah, yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, you never know who's dealing with it or have done, what I'm saying, that have dealt with it as well. So the more you talk about it, the more you actually realize, man, that there's somebody out there that experienced something similar or that can resonate with your story, and then tell you a little bit about theirs, and you resonate with them as well.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's like just eliminating the stigma. I think that's
Yeah.
the big thing. And I think as we get further in, like I even think something as silly as a podcast where like people get to talk for an hour with people that they don't typically get to talk to for an hour, and
Yep.
you just get all these different perspectives and stuff. I
Yeah.
think even that is kind of helping get rid of the stigma, and really just in general, as you can see now, is like everybody has an opinion and everybody is willing to put their opinion out there. Kind of that's social media is tricky because I think
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
some people shouldn't have it,
Yeah. It's
but
the
like
best and worst thing, I would say.
it really is because you get to connect with so many people who are going through so many similar things as you, and then somewhere in there is that like toxic person that's not using their real profile picture and information, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
when they throw in their 2 cents, and you're like, all right, this people like this guy are still out here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. There's so many people that just have bot accounts, and uh their dark accounts where they like to go on and comment and say things and
Yeah, that's
get under
exactly
people's
it.
skin and all that kind of stuff. Back then, man, you used to get under the wrong person's skin, man. They'll kick your ass. But
Yeah, I
nowadays,
mean,
just you can do it. You can do it online. It's like, hey, it's fair game.
exactly. I mean, it gets to that point that, like, you know, one of the safeties for Dallas, I'm not going to mention any names or anything, but like they were putting his like address and stuff out. And it's like, dude, why? How is that? You're not even
Yeah.
like shit talk. You know what I mean? Like, there's no
Right.
banter there. You're saying, like,
Mhm.
oh, you dropped a game sealing like pick or whatever it was. And he's like, this is
Right.
where he lives. And it's like, you're going to get shot. Like,
Man, people
he
got
plays in
families, man.
Texas. Like,
Yeah.
I
People.
don't know if you
People.
know
People have
Texas
families.
laws.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And
Man.
it's like at a certain point, it's not about banter, it's not about play. And this kind of goes back to the Prescott thing, but this is a little bit more serious because you're like leaking addresses. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
that's where it's like again, it's bigger than football at that point because
Yeah.
what are we doing here?
We live in a difficult world where that address gets to the wrong person. They
Mm-hmm.
go and do something stupid. There's self-defense. There's kids involved. There's people that maybe at the house that has nothing to that could be a family member, a mom, a dad,
Exactly.
my brother, and even from a standpoint of like they might think, oh, we leak his address and send him all these different things. I mean, you got to worry about the people who are. I mean, we live in a tough world, man, where food's not cheap, nothing's cheap. So some people saying it's like, oh, this is a way to
Yeah.
rob somebody,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, man, there's some things that happen when people do attempt that kind of stuff. So
That's exactly it. I
definitely,
mean, you see, oh, I saw his game day fit. I know what he's got. I know his
yeah,
necklaces.
yep,
And it's like,
no, people.
man,
I
it's
mean, it's so
not
easy for
worth it,
people to look
man.
that stuff up. It's just
Like,
we live in a difficult world, man, where they that information, even though it could have been like harmless on one person's part,
right.
somebody else can take that ammo and say, you know what, I'm going there to on game day they'll try to rob the guy.
Yeah, like I'm gonna
So
do something everybody's gonna regret. And it's like, man, people
yeah.
just don't think those things through. Um, we were talking about our kids and we're talking about your son. You're openly a religious guy. Um,
Yep.
openly religious. I've seen you share like music through people that you know who are kind of spreading the word a little bit, just
Hmm.
especially through hip hop, which is pretty cool because hip
Yeah.
hop, as we both know, is not geared towards
Yeah.
that typically on the
Yeah.
wider spectrum. Is
Hmm.
it difficult for you to talk about loss with your son? How old is your son now?
What do you say? So my son is 6 and my daughter's 4.
Okay, so
Yep.
to talk about like loss when they see that jersey, especially with your dad, is it difficult to bring that forward, or do you kind of just explain like, you know, life that early? Because you don't want to.
Yeah. So for me, I've always me and my wife, we are people that we don't like brushing things under the rug, even
Mm,
with the kids. And we live in a tough world where life's not always fair. There's good people who pass away. There's people who are bad that still get to live. There's some people who commit various amount of crimes and never get caught. And then there's the good kid who commits one crime and gets caught.
yeah,
So we teach them that this is a very unfair life here on Earth, and um, we don't really everybody has their different way of parenting, obviously, but
yeah,
we don't really like to hide or shelter what life is. And we both experienced where, like, our parents might not wanted to talk about some things, but if we could have went back and we known earlier what life really was about, we wouldn't have made certain decisions. We wouldn't have did that kind of stuff. So um, I teach my son about what what death is. He has questions biblically. Talk about that kind of stuff. We talk about consequences of lying, and not how you can lie about one thing, but how that leads to stealing, and stealing leads to robbing, and then it's just kind of like a trickle down effect of I guess not being aware of what these things lead to. So, for example, your friend Timmy could, he could lie and he could want you to lie. And then eventually he's going to want you to steal. And then
Mm.
eventually he's going to want you to steal and then lie about it. And then eventually he's going to want you to sell drugs, right? And then he's going to want you to steal. He's going to want you to lie about it. And he's going to sell drugs. And he's really going to wants you to be not a man of integrity and to be a dishonest person. And that leads you down a certain path and then there's also the thing of, hey, you can go and do everything the right way. You can live just like God. You can, go in and live a perfect life and never get rewarded for it here on earth. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So we teach
Yep.
them that it's not fair. You can have, this guy who takes everything, he steals everything, and you're like, man, how does he get this job over me? How does he get this contract over me and stuff like that, because life's not fair. So we talk about all that kind of stuff. We talk about, um, this is how life's not fair and that everybody deals with, whatever. So sonar is, I teach my son to be kind, and people always, you never know what somebody's going through.
Yep.
You never know what somebody's triggered about that day. We teach them about being aware of your surroundings, because it's not like, it's not like how we were when we were kids, when we can just go out and ride bikes and come home later. So he has questions about, hey, why can't I be at the park all day? Or why can't, I go here and do X, Y, and Z? And it's because life isn't like it was when I grew up and you grew up.
Yep.
Obviously, being able to go get out of school, go hop on a bike, and just say, all right, mom, I'll see you guys in a little bit when dinner's ready. So it's completely different life, which we feel bad about. Obviously, that they have to experience those things, but we don't keep quiet about it. We try to let them know as much as we can about that, about why, you know, about what a gun is, about what the purpose of it's for. Um, we really don't, we really don't shelter those things, because we do live in a world that is
Yeah.
pretty messed up. And
Yeah.
the worst thing you can do is not be knowledgeable about whatever it is at whatever age. So we do have open conversations about religion. We talk politics. We talk
Yeah. Yeah.
we talk just about anything. We talk we talk about, he talks to me about Fortnite. We talk about just about anything. TV shows, Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen. He's those are his two guys, and Dak Prescott. So we talk about all that kind of stuff. So we try to have a open dialogue, as my dad did with me. My mom didn't always like it at times, but I think it prepared me for making decisions growing up faster, and making the right decisions in college in order to get myself to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think
Yeah.
I think all that's really important. My son, he just turned 4, so we're at that
Mm-hmm.
stage where he's talking about, Fortnite, and he's playing
Yep.
video games
Yep.
and whatnot. And I
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, a lot of parents are like, "Oh, we don't do the video game thing." It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I know that when we were younger, like you said, bikes, out, streetlights, come
Yep.
on, get your ass home. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
understand that that's how we were, but like these kids are playing video games. They're still, as long as you, as a parent, you gotta kind of steer them. Like, look, let's put the screen down for a little bit,
Yep.
go
Yep.
play, throw the ball,
Mm-hmm.
get outside. But Fortnite is a game that has guns and has weapons, and
Yep.
just like you said,
Mm-hmm.
like I could shelter him and be like, "Oh, they're just bad guys and they disappear," or I could let him
All
know,
right.
like, in your video game, it's the one thing, but in real
Yep.
life, like, that is a tool and it is dangerous, and it could
Yep.
change your
Yep.
life and everybody else's life
Yep.
around you. Like, you need to
Exactly.
be aware of that. And me and my wife, will drill that into him. Like, it's very
Yep.
similar, open dialogue, like,
Mm-hmm.
because it does no good to sweep it all under the rug. It does no
Yeah.
good to
Exactly.
just tell him one thing and then real life is going to tell him another. It's you're not
Exactly.
preparing anybody for
Yep.
anything by doing that. And I feel like that's
Exactly.
responsibility number one as a parent is
Yeah.
prepare. Like
Yep.
that's really you're molding these
Hmm.
kids into adults. And if they're ill prepared, it's because not I can't say it. You're not always the reason they're ill prepared, but you need to try to at least be the best
So yep.
parent you can to prepare them for that.
Definitely.
One thing I did want to bring up, uh, mental health locker room
Yep.
is something that is that solely you? Is that only something that you're working on currently?
Yep. So it's for now it's only me. I have a couple candidates that I'm looking at to join up. My cousin being one of them. So after she has her baby, she'll come on there. But she was in the she's more on the basketball side of it.
Mm,
She played college basketball. She's friends with a lot of WNBA players. And just I think just have a female sidekick, obviously a relative, to talk about just kind of how they see mental health, and obviously her connections in the locker room, and how does the women's side of it differ from the men's side of it, and kind of getting two different perspectives, and ultimately being able to she has a lot of connections in her world. I have a lot of connections in my world. And, how do we get, people on there that's willing to come on and talk about, just their life and their experiences. And, it's not one of those, I will say this, it's not a channel where I feel like people are going to come in and, it's a sad moment or anything like that,
yeah.
because and the stigma around mental health is that like, oh, it's a sad thing, or, oh, it's something about being down. It's literally like, I was going through something. I had to get off my butt
Mm-hmm.
and change my mentality in order to complete this. And this is how I became the player that I am today, or whatever it is. Yeah, I deal with this daily, and this is how I do it. Man, I found the way I best perform is by, taking walks on certain days or whatever it is. So I think the first thing that we're gonna dive into is that like we're not psychologists, and we're not that. We're just people who share similar experiences with other people when it reverts to this topic. And that way we'll get some we'll get some doctors on that'll come on and talk about, hey, how does this relate correlate? Is it, we've seen, maybe it's from a lack of sleep that, these certain things, and get down to like the medical side of what could be causing factors. Maybe it's something you eat, maybe your diet's off, all that kind of stuff. So it'll be fun to get different kinds of people on there, get like real experts' opinion on there, and really get to sit down and talk to whether it's nutritionists and see how food is related to the mental health side of things. So I don't want to say it's just about like, hey, what are the Debbie Downer moments in your life and how'd you overcome it?
Yeah.
It's gonna be like, hey, there's a science to this. This is how they see it. It's gonna be a non-judgmental platform, where we're not judging anybody. We're just saying, hey, is there something we can do as people to open up, share our stories that might resonate with somebody else, and then they can come on and share their stories. And then there's people out there who feel like, man, I never knew that, or we'll find out that they never knew that this person was going through something like that, and they had to make it out. And I think those moments need to be expressed, because no matter if you don't have to be an athlete to go through something. It doesn't
Right.
have to be highlighted for you to go through something.
Right.
I had a really good friend of mine who I mentored for a long time, and he was going through stuff, and drug abuse, all that kind of stuff. And he told me, hey, you know, um, I'm clean, all this kind of stuff. He was going and seeking help, and then one slip up cost him his life. And those things like that, it's like, man, somebody could be doing really good, and then it just takes one moment in life, and how do we get to that moment in life where we feel like, how can we make the best decision in that moment? And
Mm.
I think by sharing experiences and stuff like that, it comes down to that. It comes down to like, you can be doing so good, and you're mentally, and then all of a sudden you lose a job. Now, then that plays a big factor, because now, how am I going to feed my family? You're already struggling financially, all that kind of stuff. And how do we get down to just sharing that experience with that? So we want to open up this platform so that people can come on and talk and listen, ask questions, get live calls that people might have. How do they deal with this? How do they deal with that? And then we're not going to come in and say, hey, we're experts on it. We're going to
Right.
actually bring the experts in and say, hey, how have you seen this? And and patience, how does sleep and recovery, go with this? How does blue screen and screen time affect the mentality? All that kind of stuff. So I think it won't be something that like, something everybody thinks when you say mental health, they think it's like it's gonna be
Yeah, they
down and
think
oh, it's gonna be a sad thing. It's not.
right.
It's really like locker room talk. But the mental health, because in the locker room, if you're in the locker room with the boys, you're talking about anything.
Yeah.
You're talking about anything with the boys. So it's like the stigma. We want it to be an open conversation surrounded. We want it to be locker room talk, man. We just want to really talk locker room stuff, and have it kind of surrounded by the mental health side of it. So we're still kind of like in the planning stages of it. If we want to have mental health segments and just have complete locker room talk and, let that lead down to the road or whatnot. That way, a lot of people aren't scared by just the name mental health locker room. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Because I'm also cautious enough to understand that. And we're always looking for ways to get people to come in the best way possible. So like if it has to be just locker room talk podcast, we'll do that. And if that's going to get more people to listen, so we're kind of going through those demographics right now and trying to see what'll be the best fit, for that in order to get the most amount of listeners as well. But we also want it to be known that like our primary goal is to share mental health stories and stuff like that. So um, especially with our world, and I don't know if a lot of people saw me tweet about it, but in 2023 was the highest suicide
Yep.
rate by death that we've ever experienced. And like I said, anybody who's dealing with that, please reach out to somebody. Please, be open and honest to yourself about it, because we've all dealt with a lot of different things in similar ways. And it's just one thing. It's just crazy to think about like where we are as a world, man, where all these things play a factor. I mean, you got social media, you got inflation is a huge one. Rent high, the pay's still low.
Yeah,
Food is
that's
I don't know if anybody's paid attention to
bro.
the grocery stores, but like I used to be able to spend like $300 and be set. $300 gets me nothing now, and I'm it's me and my wife. We got two kids, and we're just like, man, like these things go a long way. I mean, vitamins are like $50.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah, yeah,
it's
dude, they
crazy. It's
really
crazy.
are like
It's great. It's crazy. So like a lot of that stuff plays a factor in like people's well-being, because we live in a world that it's tough. It's tough to go out there and financially say, hey, I'm gonna like I've been there. I grew up poor. I grew up with nothing. So I understand. Like I can only imagine not really having a lot now in
Mhm.
today's world. Back then, because back then, I mean, you got a quarter to get you a bag of chips.
Right,
A
right.
quarter, you can't even get a piece of gum now.
Nothing. You can't get a Slim Jim. Like there's
Yeah, no, you can't even get a
nothing.
Slim Jim.
There's
Like it's
nothing,
crazy.
bro.
It's crazy, man. Like Slim Jim is like 3.29. You're like,
Yeah,
dude.
I saw it. I was like, sheesh.
Yeah, it's
Because,
crazy, man.
but I do think the one thing that, well, two things really my takeaways there. The one being like two stigmas. The first one, mental health means, I'm dragging my feet, I'm dragging ass.
Right.
And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, because the brain's a muscle,
Yep.
it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna it needs that workout. It's gonna hit the
Yep.
lows, but like it's up, you just gotta get up and tell that story on like how did you get out of it. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
locker room talk, especially like I would say like 2017, it became like potty talk. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there was like the Trump audio came out and they're like, that's just locker room talk. And it's like,
Yeah.
man, that's not like
Yeah.
that's just
Now,
not what me and my boys talked about in the locker
yeah.
room. There was like
Right. Right.
jokes, obviously, but
And that's like the
like
best place to be is
it's
locked room with
literally
the guys.
yeah, like it was not that. Like so having that stigma where it's like we were in the locker room and it's like, oh, a bunch of guys in the locker room, what'd you talk about?
Right.
Women, and it's like that was like 0.5%. Like
Yeah,
and
like
and
that
it was
barely
that
comes
one
up.
guy.
Yeah, yeah,
It was just
yeah,
the
you
one
always know it's
guy.
like, yeah, he's gonna find a way to spend in, a chick here and there. And it's like, dude, he can be talking about anything. Like, I mean, people talk about golf, and
Yeah.
there's always something. But yeah, I'm with you on that.
But like just both of those things where it's, you know, you should be able to mention mental health without thinking like, oh, this person's sad. Like
Right, right.
you're going through something. How'd you get out of it? And then locker room talk being a positive thing and not what it was spun out to be. It's the same thing as like, and a white person about to say this is insane, but it's the
Mhm,
same thing as
mhm.
like the word woke and how
Right.
they just robbed
Oh, they changed
woke.
that one now,
Like they robbed
huh?
woke.
They changed that one. They got on that
Like
one kind of fast.
that's what I mean. So like we're taking just these terms that weren't ever what they were supposed to be and just
Mhm.
completely. But yeah, the word woke is that's not my place, but insane.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
like
it's crazy. It's
that
crazy.
was
They took that one pretty fast, and
that was instant. I feel like, and it's like,
yeah,
man, you guys took a really important thing. But I won't get into that. I won't. I'll digress there. um, we do have some questions here. I don't know if you're willing to answer this one. Do you have a favorite coach?
favorite coach. I think a lot of people will. No, I'm sure they'll see it as some as things kind of pop out. But
Yeah.
I would say Bones Fossil, man. That dude is
Mm.
Coach Fossil is he's a great dude, and I had only known him. Well, I mean, I know him. I mean, we're still really close, but I had only got to play for him for 1 year. But that 1 year changed my life, man. I was you just think you have all the answers. You think that you have all the answers to life and stuff like that. And then you meet a guy who's passionate about football when you thought you were passionate. And then you
Yeah.
meet a guy who's passionate about the science of football and the play calling aspect of it. And then you meet a guy who is passionate about his like you think you're passionate about your family until you meet Bones and you're like, dude, all he talks about is his wife
Sheesh.
and all that kind of stuff. And I thought I was passionate about my faith until I go in his office and he's jamming out to worship music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like to meet a guy like that who is non-judgmental. I mean, you can go to Bones and talk about anything. And then he's going to coach you. He'll coach you hard. He'll ask you, questions. Well, why'd you do it like that and not like this? What did you see? And I think oftentimes you really don't get that. You don't get somebody who can accept your failures as failures and try to help you get through them as a coach. Usually, especially in the NFL, like I said, if it's like a little league coach, they're like, okay, buddy, it's time to
Yeah,
get you,
right.
stuff like that. But in the
Yeah.
NFL, when it's like his job's on the line if you don't perform, but he's so concerned about like, hey, you should do it this way, or trying to give you tips on that, or taking your failures and how can he help you better yourself, even at that level, I think it's so important. And that's why you see a lot of coaches, man. A lot of the coaches that are successful, oh, that's a player's coach. All the players
Yep.
coach term means is like, hey, this player can go to him about anything in life. He's not going to hold it against him. He's not going to do anything. He's going to find a way to help him. And I think, and with Bones, that wasn't just me. You know what I mean? That was guys from the top of the roster to the bottom of the roster that he's checking on. He's super excited. But definitely, I would say Bones is my favorite coach. And I had only been around him a year, but he impacted my life so much that even when I was done, when I was done playing, I would still reach out to him like, man, coach, I'm having a difficult time, man. Like
Yeah.
football was everything to me, and how do you get past that? He's like, you're gonna always feel like you can play. He's like, so you just gotta come to terms with that because it's like you still can. But just the situation of things, it's like you're gonna always have that feeling that you can still play and you can play right now. He was like, because that's just the competitive nature of you. That's what you've always done. And he was kind of one of those people that when I stole the phrase that you know you always say, oh, football is not who I am, it's what I do. He was like, no, this is who you are. You are a football player. Like this
Yeah,
is who
right.
you
Like
are.
this is you.
You have the lifestyle of it, the discipline of it, all that kind of stuff. And then when you don't really have that, you then go into a mental slump again. So when I thought I was past my own mental slump, I often found my times reaching out to Bones and just like, man, I'm mentally I'm just crushed, I'm hurting. Like how
Yeah.
it just ended so fast, and I still feel like I can play and all that kind of stuff. And man, I'm dealing with this and that. And he always, no matter how busy he was, he always found a way to reach back out. And like I said, I've only been around him for a year. And there's coaches that I was around for 4 or 5 years in Dallas, and I reach out to and I haven't heard from them. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So
So
like it's kind of like one of those situations where it's like, you can be around one person for just a little bit of time and they impact your life in a great way to where, it extends beyond just that 1 year. And then you have coaches that, you might talk to for, every single day, and they come confide in you about life and all that kind of stuff, and then you say,
Yeah.
"Hey, coach, I hope everything's well," and you don't hear back from them. Everybody's different. Everybody approaches things differently, but as far as like just the nature of caring, I think it goes a long way. Not just football, because he cares about football. He cares about plays, finding a way to win, finding a way to block a punt, to help the team, like all that kind of stuff. He makes your job on special teams feel so important. Like you're like fired up just to go to Bones' meeting because you're like, this is so important. Like I don't even care if I get close to it, and I can alter this punt for the returner. You know what I mean? Like he makes your job feel so important, as he does in life, man. He makes you feel like you're an important part of this world, and you're an important part of life. So definitely Bones is definitely my favorite coach.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. He just seems like he knows X's and O's. Like beyond like you get those coaches that people don't really understand, like Al Harris, for example,
Mm-hmm.
like Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland. Like that's not happening by accident. That's a coach who's sitting and connecting with these guys on that level. And
Yeah,
Harris is somebody that I've reached out to in DMs too, and I'm just like, man, coach, you're killing. Like
yeah,
you're just
yeah. I
watching
was
these guys who like,
I was with Al in Kansas City
yep,
when Marcus Peters and Steve Nelson
like
and all those guys are there.
it's
Man,
not an
just
accident that these
nah, he
guys
was
are working with
he's been
Al
right there.
and shining. And
Yep.
Bones, his focus, like you said, the importance on special teams, like it's not offense and defense with him. It's like you're a unit
Yeah.
too, and I
Yep.
need you to go out there. And I mean, if you watch even the special teams right now, like that unit is disgusting. Like they're very,
Yeah.
very, very well
Mhm.
coached. And the importance of having a coach you can reach out to. Even myself, like you look at me, I'm not getting in any cages anytime soon. But I
Yeah.
have my coach where I'm like, "How you doing, brother?" And he'll tell me like, and then he's like, "How are you doing?" He reached out. My mom passed.
Yeah.
Like having somebody like that
Hmm.
is really, really important. And
Yeah.
you hear I don't know how true this is, but like you mentioned Dallas specifically, the earn the star coaches.
Yeah.
You know what I'm referring to?
Hmm.
Like you hear about those guys, and it's like I don't know if that's what you want to be known for in that regard. I don't know how true that stuff is with the Cowboys, but
There's a lot of stuff with the boys, man, that go past the players' heads, goes past
yeah,
everybody's heads, man. It's a lot of I know a lot of us, man, we were like, hey, how can we stick around? How
yeah,
can
that's what I
we
mean.
how can we go
Like,
out there and just put our head down, focus on this, and
yeah,
stuff
it's
like that. But
is So who were you a fan of before even becoming a player? Because I mean, you look at you now, and you're constantly talking Dallas specifically. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Were you
yeah.
always a Cowboys fan, or did that
So
happen after?
so so I'll tell you kind of happened. So I grew up actually a Bears fan.
Okay,
So being from Illinois,
Illinois. Yep.
you know, hearing about the '85 Bears, my dad talking about them. I just have a distinct memory of always watching the Bears from the Brian Urlacher days, Jay Cutler days, and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And it was funny. I went to Miami, and I was only in Miami for maybe like 4 weeks in 2017 before I came to Dallas. And Jay Cutler was a quarterback. And I remember being like in high school, and I was like, and you always get to like, this dude to go out there and throw for 400 or 500 yards. Next
Yeah.
day next game he'll throw 5 picks and like,
Yep.
all that kind of stuff. So like, I just remember like being there, and I actually get to see this guy for the first time in person. I'm just looking at it like, this dude here, like without even really like in my Bears fan mentality. I'm like,
Yeah.
freaking Jake. I'm like, man, freaking Jake Cutler. Like, you just like, so I was like a big fan while I was playing.
Right.
And then I think one game, he went out there, threw a few picks, and then he just came back and just sat on the bench. And I was like, yup, Jake Cutler. And then it was like, it was just like in my head, but that's just who he was. But like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like he's
It's
not
just
really rattled by all the stuff.
yep.
And then you'll
Yep.
see him and he'll come back out, and then like he might throw for 400 yards, and then you're just like, yeah, that's Jake Cutler. You know what I mean? Like it's just so
Yeah.
weird. So I grew up a Bears fan, and then when it came down to, I had kind of been, I was in Kansas City. Once
Yep.
I got released from there, the Dolphins claimed me. I went there. They're like, hey, we're gonna release Ray Malug off PUP.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to use your roster spot, but we're going to bring you right back. And then Seattle claimed. So I went out to Seattle. So I'm out there for a game, and then after the game, I was played Sunday night. After the game, they're like, "Oh, your wife's on the phone." I couldn't find my phone. I'm like, surely nobody robbed me from my cell phone
Yeah,
in the
right.
locker room.
Like,
So I ended up basically getting to my phone, and then that's when my wife was on the other line. She was like, yeah, your little brother passed away. And that's kind of how that news came about.
mm,
So I was like, my game is Seattle. But I would say Seattle was a great point, like a great stopping spot, in my career and life, because I became good friends with KJ Wright, Bobby Wagner.
yeah,
Joe Jones was there, special teamer for the Titans, really good dude. But these are like guys that I like, met, and I was only there for like a week.
right.
And when my brother passed away, they were super, they reached out and made sure like, I needed everything. And then just being a vet like that kind of impacted me. And then basically to get back on course to that question was, after I left Seattle, they're like, hey, you can go back home for your little brother's funeral. We'll sign you right back, because they had signed somebody, but then he had broke his hand or something. So like, he
Mm,
has to be on the roster for 3 weeks. We'll use your spot, but we'll bring you right back. So at that point, I had offered to come back to Seattle, the Bears, to come in, because that was the year they lost all their linebackers,
yeah.
2017, and then the Cowboys. So the Cowboys, I knew had put in a claim for me before, and I just remember my dad saying, around the draft and stuff. Obviously, he wanted me to go to Kansas City, but he was like, I wouldn't be hurt if you went to the Cowboys and all that kind of stuff. He's like, if you ever get a chance to rep the star, and play for the Cowboys, like, you go do it. You take the opportunity. And I remember, my father-in-law was there at the house. We had just buried my little brother. The Bears called me and said, "Hey, are you going to sign?" Cowboys called, "Hey, are you going to sign?" And then I was actually going to sign with the Bears, because I was like, man, hometown team.
Hometown. Yeah.
I'm going with the Bears. And then my father-in-law was like, he basically said the same thing my dad did, and it just kind of brought a flashback, like, hey, this isn't a coincidence. So he's like, man, if you ever get a chance to play for the Cowboys, like, you go do it. And it was pretty much like word for word what my dad had said. And this is my father-in-law. So, so I told the Cowboys, I'm ready. So I went there, and this was what, my fourth team in this 2 month span. And I probably say that was the best decision that ever happened to me and my family, because I was in a really, really dark place, man. Losing my dad and my brother 11 months
Yeah.
apart, and
Yeah.
then you got to go and perform. And then I hadn't seen my son was only 2 months at the time, so I hadn't really seen him. I hadn't really barely could talk to my wife, because I was practicing, always that kind of stuff. So I was in a dark place,
Yeah.
and I never forget, man, going to Dallas and meeting all those guys, Sean Lee, Anthony Hitchens, Damian Wilson, Dak. Uh, I had so many people that just embraced me, and I'm like, dude, I'm a journeyman at this point. I've been on
Yeah.
4 teams just, in the past
All
couple
right.
months, and they all pretty much came up to me and introduced themselves, and that's what kind of resonated with the type of leader Dak was, because like, obviously I know who Dak Prescott is, I know who Zeke is, but for them to come up to me and it's like, welcome to the team and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff, as somebody who, this is mid-season, we're in October, and to come out, and luckily everything just kind of fell into place, because with Jason Garrett being there, everybody always has a stigma that the practices are hard and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, which they were, but they still did one-on-ones. So all the other places I've been to, they stopped doing one-on-ones in training camp.
Mm.
But Jason Garrett, they did it all throughout the season. So I come in, and obviously all the guys are tired of doing one-on-ones. So they're like, oh, get up there, you go, you go. So they kept making me go.
Yeah.
And, I would just compete my ass off, and I made a lot of plays, made a lot of plays on the ball, over and over each, twice a week, I'm doing this over and over again. And it was to the point where like they were like, "Hey, when's your family coming down?" I was like, "Never." I was like, I know how this works. I'm like, "Oh, they won't be." I was like, "Are you sure you can bring them down?" I was like, "I don't know about it, coach. Like, I don't know, man. I could be gone tomorrow and moving on."
Right.
Like,
Right.
they're like, "Yeah, you're good for the year." So I brought them down, and from there it was kind of like the best thing that I would say ever happened to me. And it was like, when you're going through all this chaos, the Cowboys really stabilized my career, stabilized my life, whether they know it or not. So I'll always be a fan of the Cowboys. Obviously, spending a lot of time, with a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
Will McClay and all those guys, talking to me and embracing me. Um, and my even my my impact wasn't as big as I wanted it to be personally, because we always have the goal of, hey, I want to be this, I want to be that.
Right.
But filling in and diving into my role, and Coach Pasachi telling me like, hey, Coach Rich said, if you can't block on punt return, he said your ass will be out the NFL before you know it. So he said, if you can't block on punt, your ass will be out of the NFL before you know it. And so I started practicing my punt sets, and
Yep.
then
Yep.
I became one of those guys who I started teaching other people to do it, and
Mhm.
other rookies. And I'm like, hey, listen, you guys, if you want to be in the NFL, you got to learn how to punt set. And then it happened, because I think we had somebody go down. We're playing against the Eagles, and they're like, you're starting on punt this, in a couple of days. I'm like, okay, cool. And I had been practicing my punt set, so
Right.
he's like, all right. And then Rich Sanchez, he told me, he said, all right, two name, because he called me two name, because I had two names in back in. He said, all right, two name. He said, don't f this up. So then, I went out there, I started it. It was I protected really well, and that was kind of it. So yeah, I grew up a Bears fan, but because of my my connections with the Cowboys and where I was at in my life and stuff like that, is something that made me a fan, I would say,
Yeah.
of them, and I always hope to see them do well.
Yeah. No, I mean, even like just being who I am, you always see like the guys on Twitter and whatnot, and they're like, these are guys, they're just jersey numbers, like just, stop trying to get connected to it. And it's like, but when you hear about guys like Dak and his leadership, like obviously that's
Yeah,
not blown out of proportion because every player that's played
you
on
have the
that
same
team brings it
perception of
up.
them.
Every
Yep,
single person brings it up, whether they like being on the team or not.
yep.
And then you got somebody like you who's going through all that. I feel like that was probably like the perfect locker room just because,
It
a guy like
was.
Sean Lee could have probably been one of the best at his position. Really
Yeah.
good IQ.
Shout out
Just
my guy Sean.
just the injuries. Like and it's like so when
Yeah,
you're talking to guys who are going through not the same necessarily as you, even though,
and different.
you know,
Yeah,
but like just going through stuff, I feel like that's probably like there wasn't a better spot for you to land at that time in your life. There's no way.
yeah. I went there in my first practice. People get tired of getting tackled and hit by Sean. So
Yeah.
so in practice, it's like they basically like give the new guy the ball to be the running back, and then Sean will come hit him, all that kind of stuff. Which I
Yeah.
learned obviously as I got older, on the team. But first practice, like, all right, go be a running back. So I wanted to be a runner. I ran a stretch, and he's supposed to just like thud me up and
Yeah.
pop me in. We'll keep moving. He tackled me. So in my head, I'm like, okay, I see what this is. So then I went again. So then as the next day went on, I started trying to run him over. And then it just became like a mutual respect of like, hey, we're gonna compete. And
Yep.
then there was no, Sean didn't want to go with the rookies. He always wanted to go with me. He's like, hey, get the ball. Hey, you get the best look, as all this kind of stuff.
No.
And we would just go out there and we could compete. And I think bringing that is something that, like, I felt like I brought to the linebacker room, to special teams room, is competition, and competing, and having a spirit for practice, and wanting to play and wanting to get better. And so yeah, so that's my Sean Lee story, man. The dude tackled me my first practice there, and we became really good friends after that.
He always seemed like just one of those guys. He's obviously everybody who knows Sean Lee or like has even just watched him, like he reads offenses really well, but he always just seemed like just a nice guy. Even somebody mentioned Bobby Wagner. I always got that same impression where it's like Bobby
So
just seems
so
like such a good dude.
yeah,
And
so I had a good experience. I would say, like, guys I played with at linebacker, Derek Johnson,
mm,
one of the best guys you could ever meet. But he taught me a lot about football. He taught me a lot about being a playmaker. He taught me a lot about taking risk, and understanding what's going, and trusting your instincts, and being super instinctive, and all that kind of stuff. And then Sean is like by the book. So Sean is like,
yeah.
no, you do it this way, you do it that way.
Yeah.
This means this means that. So I kind of had a good combination. And then Bobby is like a good. So Bobby Wagner is like a good. He kind of does both. Like, he'll go and make
Yeah.
plays. He'll go and be super technical. He'll do stuff like that. So getting to really be around all three of those guys, really, I would say really impacted like how I felt as a linebacker, how I decided to lead and stuff like that, because they all lead in different ways, but they're all super good dudes. All they care about is competing and executing and stuff like that. But yeah, Bobby's a great dude. Like he'll still reach out from time to time to check in, which I think is just crazy because I'll see him like on game days, and
Yeah, right.
he'll always come up to me and do this, and and that just means like, man, I think I'm taller than you. Or we would always go back and forth about who was taller, and then he'll just do that, and like across the sideline. So it was always funny when we were warming up. Whenever we played the Seahawks, it was the same thing. So that was good. And then KJ Wright is a great dude as well. Knows a lot of football. And,
Yep.
always made a lot of plays, stuff like that. So finishing my career, he was there with the Raiders when I finished up. So he was somebody else that was a really good linebacker, good person.
Yep. Yep. It's always good to hear, like I said, just like under the helmet, these guys
Yeah,
and your idea of these guys, like a DeMarcus Lawrence, just these guys that you think Lamar Jackson, these guys that you like, you visually you could see like I think this is a good guy, and then you get that confirmation from somebody who's been around these guys, and it's like, all right, hell yeah, I'm
yeah.
rooting for the good guy.
Oh yeah, yeah. D Law is a super good dude. Man.
Yeah.
He takes care of people. He takes
Yep.
care of people. That's
Yep.
one thing I say about him. He used to, whenever I first got to the team, he was one of those guys that brought me along. Anthony Hitchens, Tyrone Crawford,
Yep.
a lot of the big, I'd say a lot of big brothers in that, in that circle. So they knew I was kind of, dealing with things, but they used to force me to like come over their house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
we're playing Madden, like,
Yeah.
we'll pick you
Crawford, I
up. I'm
could.
like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. Like, oh, we're going out to dinner.
Yeah.
Come on, let's go. And thing I didn't even want to do it. I just wanted to stay put up in a hotel and not
Yep.
doing, you know what I mean? Like that's where I was at mentally.
That's just very similar. So Malik Hooker, um, he came out and said this, so I don't feel weird bringing him up.
Uh,
With like the Colts, he didn't really feel a connection to the locker room, and he mentioned that like just the camaraderie and whatnot in Dallas when he got there, it felt just night and day. And you see it like he's Instagram stories, he's out and about,
oh yeah,
they're
having more
bowling,
fun.
whatever they're doing,
Yo,
like and so like that same thing. I mean, Crawford's not good at Madden. I played him, but like just that camaraderie that you're bringing up, and he was another one that just seems like I follow him on Instagram. We talk, holidays. I'll wish
uh,
him happy holiday, whatever it might be. But like just that same thing you're talking about. Uh, you're somebody who is just echoing what Malik Hooker mentioned
oh
during
yeah,
like a Q&A with him. So
yeah,
it's really cool just to kind of just embrace that from everybody.
right, definitely. That's awesome.
Well,
Everybody got the same opinion.
yeah, yeah. I
So
mean, there'll be
it's
one guy
always good.
somewhere, but that's fine.
Yeah, that'll be something. Yeah, yeah. Hey,
There's always
that's
one.
everything. Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, it's after 6. I mean, I think we've been here about an hour. Is there anything you want to plug? I know we talked about mental health, locker room. Oh, almost forgot. One thing, what are you up to now? I know you, you put up Coach March at one point, like you want to coach.
Yeah,
What are you doing
yeah.
nowadays?
I'm still in that process of figuring out, kind of exercising my connections. With a lot of people that I've kind of been around and spent some time with. So I definitely want to get into the coaching side of things. If not the coaching side of things, I definitely want to be on the scouting side of things.
Mm,
So I'm still hunting on both those ends. I think there's something special about coaching and teaching, and I think there's something special about breaking down players, their ability, building a roster, all that kind of stuff. So needs to say I'm still exercising some options. I got some options on the table from a couple colleges to come in coaching wise and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just kind of taking my time and seeing what else is out there that's like the best fit for me and the family.
yeah.
So right now I'm just being a dad, and um, I help train some high school kids that want to get better, some college kids that want to get better at at linebacker and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I do, and I don't charge the guys. I just say, hey, if you want
Yeah.
to learn football, and you want to talk ball, we'll get out there on the field and we'll do it. So really, I'll just continue to connect with people, continue to try to get in somewhere, coaching, and depending on the level, we'll see what happens. Like I said, I have a few college opportunities. Still waiting to decide if I want to go to high school, develop some younger men,
Yeah.
or just kind of wait around for the NFL spot. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping to get into the NFL. It's kind of like what I want to do. I think there's something special about it. Obviously being there in
Yeah.
the NFL, I think there's something special about it. For now, just kind of building that resume and working on my connections to get me in.
Yeah, no, that's all there is to it. I mean, that was just something, it was asked and I was like, I'll make sure to ask. I was like, I know I heard Coach March, I know he floated that around, but
Yeah, yeah.
I was like,
I wanna coach, man. I'm passionate about, like I said, I'm passionate about teaching. Even when I was playing, the younger guys will come in, the ones that are coming to take a spot. Nobody teaches anything except for me.
yeah,
So I'll go in, but you do have a lot of guys that'll come in, and even though you're trying to take their spot, they'll teach you, and they'll simplify things for you to go in there. And those are
yeah,
some good veteran guys that do that. So I always took pride in that. If it was someone coming from a different team, want to learn the system better, I always took pride in doing that, and I always got true joy and passion from, even helping those rookies out, and then seeing them gonna do it in the preseason. You know what I mean? So I knew
yeah,
at that
yeah,
moment I was like, man, this is like there's so much, just so much more warmth feeling knowing you help somebody out achieve something that they wanted to achieve. And I think coaching is what is one of those things where you get rewarded for helping other people.
yeah. No, 100%. I did it, a very small level, just but like, going to the gym with newer
Yep,
MMA guys and they're like
yep,
trying to
exactly.
spar and take each other's heads off. It's like, no, 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 hold on, hold on. Like,
Yeah.
and then, I taught like kids classes and stuff too. And that I think that's
Hmm.
even more fun than teaching these adults because
Yeah.
they're just wild kids.
Yeah.
There's no form to a kid. It's just, can you get my kid tired? And it's like, I can do
Right.
that.
Right. Right. Yeah, that'd
So,
be fun.
but like the same exact that satisfaction you get when you're drilling with a guy and they finally get what they've been working on. It's like, all right, cool, we got
Exactly.
that. Let's move on
Yeah.
to the next thing. So very small
Yeah.
level, but I do understand that satisfaction is there and
Definitely.
chase that. I mean, but
Yeah.
there's nothing really similar to that besides raising a
Yeah.
kid. That's like the closest thing you got to being a coach. Like,
Yep. Yep.
so
Yeah. I coach my son's youth flag football team. So
yeah,
um, I was actually texted one of my coaches, uh, Coach Bloom,
okay.
Ben Bloom, who's the linebacker coach. And as I'm coaching this flag football team, which my son is on, I'm like, dude, I would coach these kids. I would give them the right play. We're gonna go score a touchdown. We're gonna do this, and then they do the complete opposite of what I just said. So I texted him. I was like, okay, now I see now I see how you felt, and like I
Yeah,
apologize for certain for
yeah,
certain moments where it's like I went and did my own thing instead of listening to you. And I was like, I'm kind of getting some payback because it's like, man, these kids, I'll tell them exactly what to do, exactly where the ball's going, all this kind of stuff, and they'll do the complete opposite. So it's always, I don't know. I think just the ups and downs of that and fighting through that
yeah,
adversity is fun. Because then seeing my son kind of get better, and especially as a dad, I mean, I'm telling him exactly what to do because I'm like, oh, I want you to look good. So hey, do this, do this, do
yep.
this, and he just doesn't do it. And maybe about the fourth game, he got like his first. I would say he got his first flag like 4 games into the season. And after the first one, he was just like hungry, like he just wanted
Yeah,
a
yeah.
flag. That's
You
all he
just
wanted.
that's all he
Yeah,
wants.
that's all he wanted. He got a touchdown. That's all he wants. He wants the ball every single play, stuff like that. So I thought that was satisfying. So I kind of see myself in that field for sure.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's awesome to hear, and hopefully, you land in a spot that's not only good for you, but somewhere you can find yourself staying put. So
Yeah, definitely.
hopefully we get that. If they need a ball boy, just hit me up. You got my DM,
I
whatever.
got you.
You can. Yeah.
I got you.
Is there anything you want to
Okay.
plug before we get out of here, or
Not that I can really
any
think about.
shout
I think
outs, anything at all?
shout outs, man. I always got to shout out my wife, man. She's the only person who knows exactly what I've been through,
Yep.
and she continues to hold it down, and she's understanding that in the transitional part of you've been doing something for 25 years, you don't get it. There's some sort of transition, man. So if there's anybody out there dealing with any type of transitional thing from something you've been doing for a long time and you're going to work a new job, you know what? Keep the faith, keep the hard work, take exactly what got you there and that hunger, and apply it to the next phase of your life, and you'll be successful.
That's all there is to it. I'm not I'm not gonna echo on any of that. That's a good sign off right there. Well, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Thank you for coming
Yes,
on.
sir.
We'll do it again sometime.
All right. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
All right.